While the markets continue to wait for Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan to be put into place, and this week is expected to see the House Budget Committee finalise the legislation and the Rules Committee set out the parameters for the floor debate over the plan, the economic calendar will give an indication of how much it is needed. Things admittedly start slowly. President's Day on Monday and an empty Tuesday data-wise means the week may not get going until Wednesday, when the latest retail sales are revealed. Both the normal and core readings are expected to bounce back from December to January. The former is forecast at 1.1% against minus 0.7% the month prior, while the latter at 0.9% compared to December's minus 1.4%. However, Wednesday is also expected to see industrial production go in the wrong direction, falling from 1.6% to 0.4%. Thursday is then set to see the weekly unemployment claims reading pull back from 793,000 to 775,000, with the Philly Fed Manufacturing Index dropping to 20.3 and import prices rising to 1.0%. Finally, Friday is the flash manufacturing and services PMIs for February, indicative of how the economy has been holding up this month. The former is forecast at 58.4 against January's final 59.2, while the latter is expected to slip from 58.3 to 57.9. All of this is going to be very important for the Dow Jones. Now the index is back, setting new records every time it rolls out of bed, there is arguably, or at least there should be, extra scrutiny on every piece of American data to see if the Dow's current levels are justified. After all, we are still firmly in the midst of a pandemic, and the American Rescue Plan isn't quite yet been put into place. Then again, investors do seem solely focused on the incoming stimulus, so may not be receptive to analysing the intricacies of the week's releases. An eye should also be kept on the vaccine rollout. Reports suggest around 12% of the US population has had at least their first dose of either the Moderna or Pfizer vaccine. However, supply issues persist. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said the state has used up 90% of its available vaccines, while in California, LA Mayor Eric Garcetti had to close mass vaccination center at Dodger Stadium due to a lack of supply. Similar closures were also seen in San Francisco. Though vaccine fever doesn't seem to be the driving force behind the recent US gains in the same way it has been in the UK, it is no doubt contributing to the Dow's bullish run, which means any further signs of supply issues or a slowdown in the pace of vaccinations could start to undermine the index's dizzy highs. Because after all, the index is now heading towards 32,000 for the first time. It's only around 600 to 400 points away from that level, which means sooner rather than later, potentially, there's going to be some kind of reckoning to see whether, as I said, whether those highs are actually justified in the midst of a pandemic that, even with Biden's stimulus plan, is still going to have a lot of tough figures in the coming months. And that also is dependent on whether Biden's stimulus plan is delivered at that $1.9 trillion level, or whether it does sort of get reduced if the Democrats do go down the compromise route, if they want to keep Republicans on board. That's looking unlikely. It does look like the Democrats are going to go their own way. However, it's going to be very interesting to see how the Dow and the rest of the US markets behave once that stimulus package is in place, because then it's sort of back just sort of looking ahead towards a COVID-19 dominated landscape, one that isn't going to see things back to normal for quite a while. So once that stimulus plan is in place, that might be when the Dow Jones is faced with some tough questions over its levels.